Hey everybody, what's happening? Robert Phoenix here, and a lot bit late today because I was in transit and I was in Austin last night, spending the last few nights with a few friends here from the gathering, and then I was in transit coming back. So decided I wanted to at least do a little bit of a brief show, kind of a half an hour show. I'm sure some of you in California appreciate it because you're just waking up. And kind of recap the Biden Harris debate and give you my take and critique on it. Also, the flag controversy and an update on Trump, who is going to not be participating in the next virtual debate. So I'm going to wait for a few people to come on in. There's Danica, and then 10 Dragon, Shirley. What's going on, Shirley? Beth Berry's here. Michael, good to see that you have made it back okay. Great having you. Double V in the house. And let's see, anybody else? There's Charles. Good morning. Have you ever hit polyphonic lyrical interpretation of classics such as Hotel California? There used to be a group called the Swingle Singers. Do you remember them at all, Charles? The Swingle Singers, polyphonic. They would do like these sort of Baroque songs. There's a group called the Polyphonic Spree, which is a more modern version of that, and I think they do stuff like that. So you may want to get into that group Polyphonic Spree. You might enjoy them. And then the Swingle Singers, if you have a penchant for really nice, sort of tasty vocal Baroque vocal stylings. Hey, there's Don Hart. Good to see you. Frank Bry, Mary Grether. Love and blessings. What's going on, cuz? Renee in the house. Hello, Renee. Laura D. Dorothy. Hey, there she is. Dorothy Edwards. Good morning to you, Dorothy. Let's see. Who else? Maureen Demare. Damn, that is a lot of miles. Yes. Faith Sarvi trip. There she is. Good morning, Faith. Let's see. Anybody else here? Yeah, check out Polyphonic Spree. Charles, you might dig him. John G in the house. There's our astrological friend from New Jersey. JMP Love, looking at the world upside down. She had the coolest dice. She had these dice where you would roll them and you could go sign and then planet and house. They're kind of like these astrological oracle dice. I gotta get some of those, Jacqueline. That was a cool little tool. Wendy Eater in the house. Lots of pyramids hidden in the Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona deserts. Yeah, Kestrel kept flashing me pictures from the road of, these Pyramid Peak mountains. That West Texas area, man, that's a trippy area. I'd like, one of these days, I'd like to get like a really good Jeep and just start going off-roading in that West Texas area. I bet you'd find some pretty weird shit. Pretty weird shit. Crow77 just put out a great video. I'll send you some dice, Robert. Okay. Thanks, Jack. So I don't know what they're called, but Ben, they were cool. They're fun little oracle tool. And I think Steve Crimmy did a thing for Trump for being president. And what was it? I think it was wasn't it Sun, Capricorn, 10th house? Was that what it was, JMP? Castro dice. What did Steve Crimmy? What did he roll for Trump? Do you remember? I think it was Sun, Capricorn, 10th house. Yeah. West Texas has West Texas, man. They have these. So when you drive out, they have these buttes. And it almost looks like the tops of these things have just been sliced right off. They just go and then flat, right? Totally flat. And house, Saturn and Cap, 10th house. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, that's right. I would say probably a pretty good indicator, but not easy coming from a Saturn and Cap guy. So they got these buttes though. They come right up, and then they got these flat tops. And I'll never forget the first time that I drove through West Texas. A long time ago. It was like 1996 for me. A long time ago. And off in the distance, seeing these, finger lightning coming down and hitting the tops of these buttes. I'm like, wow, it's pretty interesting. There's some pretty interesting atmospherics going on out here. So one of these days, I'd love to rent a Jeep and just go totally off-roading in that area. I bet you eventually I'd run into somebody in a security uniform, unidentified, with a lot of heavy artillery. I bet that would happen at some point. I was talking with Dorothy and Rod about the Big Bend area in Texas, which is like, really where the real mountainy region in Texas is Big Bend. It's kind of like slightly southeast of El Paso, and kind of borders Texas and Mexico. And I've been there. I think I've been there one time. There are some towns there that are very unusual. Very, very, very unusual. And the one that I found to be the most unusual was Marfa. And they have the Marfa lights, but I think some strange and dark shit goes on out there in that kind of deep West Texas, kind of on the border there. Like Marfa's got a really weird vibe. Very, 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 very right. FYI, Cosmographia. And Charles has about 8 exclamation marks. So it looks like Maury's out of the path of the hurricane. Well, thank God for that. You don't need another natural disaster on your porch now, do you? Maury, I went through Marfa on Amtrak train in the middies. So we were there last year. We saw the lights of Marfa. They were cool. I'd heard all about the lights of Marfa. I was like completely spellbound by these lights. And they have like an observation station built just for the lights of Marfa. And we got there at night. And so I've never been there before. I didn't know what the landscape was. I didn't know what was around this place. We roll in, it's New Year's Eve, and there are about 4 or 5 other people there. We go out on a deck, and sure enough, there they are. They're dancing all over the place. Like, wow, man, this is crazy. Different colors are going up, they're going down. It's like wild shit, right? And I was so like mesmerized by the lights as we rolled into the town of Marfa. I didn't notice that the speed limit had changed. So I'm doing 55 and a 35. I swear to God. And I get pulled over. And this young gal, this Latina cop, starts talking to me. And I made a joke with, because of her flashing lights on top of her cop car. I said, "Oh, it looks like I just saw the real lights of Marfa." And I told her, I said, "Look, I'm really sorry. We just been out to the lights of Marfa, and I was actually and you can follow the lights as you're driving." So I'm like following these fucking lights, and I'm not noticing the speed limit has changed. And so I told her that, and she let me go. Well, I was 20 miles over the speed limit. She let me go. And you know why? Because I was telling the truth. That's why. I wasn't trying to get out of a ticket. I was just telling the truth. Like, we just saw the lights of Marfa, and I just kept following those lights. Maurice says, Charles says, "Maurice, I'm going to walk the beach Ocean Springs, Mississippi tomorrow morning to absorb all the energy, vortex whirlwind power. I love it. Charles is a mage. He's a mage. Steve's in the house. Had a great time hanging out with Mr. Steve Thor by the door. Of course, you saw him here. He was here yesterday too. He just wasn't on the show. I mean, I think just doing that one time is probably enough. So he was here yesterday, and Steve and I got to hang. Great guy. If you didn't already know, great guy, quality human being, character, class, all the way. Steve, you're the embodiment of all those things. And Steve got to experience a little of my home cooking. I busted out I bought this big grill smoker. And man, does it kick some ass. I was really happy with that. I threw some mesquite charcoal on there. I got that flame going in about 10, 15 minutes. It was like ready. It was ready. And I threw some grass-fed pork chops, bone in. Man, we feasted. We totally feasted. Last night we were talking about, well, what can we do next year? I'm thinking, well, I said, why don't we rent a boat? Let's all get on a boat and then let's go occupy an island somewhere. I mean, that might be kind of fun to go occupy an island. But if when we're on the island, it's just going to be, it'll just be us on the island. But it could be interesting. I'm looking around Lafitte, Louisiana, maybe, where they had Jean Lafitte. And we can get our pirate danger on. Let's see. By the way, I have another culinary thing I stumbled onto, and you can buy this rice cauliflower, which I really like. It's great, and so you could get it, savory or with garlic, and so I added some, pepper jack, Monterey Jack cheese to the rice cauliflower, and you get the cheesy rice cauliflower. Let me tell you, that's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. All right, so come to Annapolis. We're surrounded by water and lots of boats. Annapolis, Maryland, naval, close to Virginia, close to Arlington, close to the CIA. Shirley, I really like you as a person, but that's not really where my first choice would be. Not where my first. No, I'm thinking somewhere like an island, like off Lafitte, Louisiana. That's what I'm thinking. We can occupy an island. Just messing around. Okay, so let me just do a quick little prayer thing, and then we'll get into the debate. I'm not going to have a huge, long show today, but I did want to do something because I do want to talk about the debate. It was kind of interesting, actually. It was more interesting than the Trump-Biden debate by a long shot. All right, so let's get down with this. Dear blessed Holy Father, Mother God of the great central Sun, within the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sanat, Emmanuel, we ask that only the highest and best information come through this channel at this time, and that we are blessed and graced with the qualities of wisdom, perseverance, commitment, faith, flexibility, strength, courage, empowerment, abundance, joy, creativity, imagination, novelty, compassion, empathy, discernment, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream. So be it. All right. What's going on, Texas Norton's NZ debate last night was not near as entertaining as the first, though. The first, I mean, if you like Ric Flair and you like Hulk Hogan, I mean, that first debate. No, I thought last night's debate may not have been as entertaining, but it was more interesting. And The reason why I was interested, I, I'm a boxing fan. I like boxing. I've always liked boxing. I'm not a huge MMA guy. Although when I was a kid, I was really, I was look. So I was one of the first people in this country to really watch kickboxing as a sport, and that would have been around 1976. And we used to get these TV feeds, and they were from Thailand, and they were showing up on this local UHF channel, right? And so my father and I would watch. This is 1976, and we'd watch kickboxing from Thailand. It was all pretty much Thai fighters. There was this one guy who was not Thai, and he was an American guy, and he was the way that the original Thai kickboxing, just to give you a bit of an idea as to the evolution of kickboxing, is that it was mostly boxing, and if they were kicking, it was rarely above the thighs. Okay, rarely above the thighs. And what the Thais would do is that they would take pieces of bamboo and they would beat the shit out of their shins, so that their shins would essentially have kind of a layer of calcification on top of their shin bone. So if they got kicked in the shin, like it would not like break their fucking shin. That's what they would do. Okay. Not only that, but they would make the skin around the shin, because of that, and probably some other things, pretty leathery. Because all they did was just kick below the nuts. And they did the same thing with their thighs too, by the way. With the thigh, because there's so much bead on the thigh, it was more about like getting the thighs to be, less. How do I say? Kind of less vulnerable to some kind of a contusion, or deep kinds of bruising. So there would be a lot of muscle work done on the thighs to increase sort of the armature of the thigh, but they would beat the shit out of their shins with bamboo. No kicks went above the waist. And so they would box, mostly box. And I remember this one American guy came in. First time I saw an American, and he started throwing kicks above the waist. And eventually that's where it would go. He was way ahead of his time. He got beat because hadn't perfected the style yet. But it was interesting watching those very early kickboxing matches from Thailand. And they had some American guy who was there, kind of narrating the fights. And he had the worst toupee in the world. He had just a really bad toupee. But it was always very interesting too, because they had these rituals. They came out, they wore these kind of like spike crowns, and they would go around the ring and they would bow, and there'd be some rice stuff happening. I'm like, this is kind of cool, man. Like, these guys are really into this thing. And then they would go at it. And I'll never forget this one boxer, a Thai boxer, and I told this story before. His name was Sanajim Bampai, and I always thought, what a musical sounding name, Sanajim Bampai. It's really, I don't know if he was a good fighter or not, but he had a good name. And I was really into Taekwondo, and I was doing some tournament stuff back then. I wasn't anything special. I won a few, I lost a few. But I thought, oh man, I'll go be this guy. I'll be this American, and I'll go to Thailand, and I'll go become a kickboxer in Thailand. It was probably the best decision I never made, because I would have gotten killed in that place. But I do like boxing, and the thing about boxing is styles. It's styles. Boxing matches different kinds of styles. And when I was a kid, I was a big George Foreman fan. I loved George Foreman when I was a kid. Foreman, born in Houston, but spent a lot of time living and training in Oakland, California, which is was my neck of the woods. And a lot of people don't know this or don't remember this, but George Foreman was the gold medal champion of the Olympic heavyweight boxing tournament for the 1968 Summer Olympics held in Mexico City. And after he won the gold medal, he took a tiny American flag and he went to every side of the ring. And right? And George Foreman, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is a Sagittarius. So, he was kind of vested in this idea of America and winning for America and the pride and all that stuff. And I saw that too. I'm like, man, this guy's okay. And as a kid, I fucking hated Muhammad Ali. I hated him. As I got older, I began to appreciate him more, but for different reasons. I didn't like him. I thought he was a loudmouth. I just wanted somebody to whoop his ass. You know what I'm talking about? It was like, and he did that too. He was really good at marketing himself. He understood that. He had that wrestling kind of vibe. Because wrestlers like to become the villain and stuff. He knew that stuff inside. He was very smart, and he played that to the hilt. But I didn't like him, and so when I was a kid, I was a George Foreman fan. I went and saw George Foreman. I didn't see him fight Joe Frazier, but I went to the Open Coliseum with my father on closed circuit TV and watched him fight Joe Frazier and beat the living fuck out of Joe Frazier. And I even called it. I told my father, I said, I think George Foreman's going to win tonight. And there was some undercard fights, and the whole environment was like special. It was special. And not because it was George Foreman versus Joe Frazier, but you had to get in your car. You had to go somewhere to experience technology that wasn't available to your home. It was like for that moment, you may not be ringside. And I think it was in Kingston, Jamaica. You may not have been ringside in Kingston, Jamaica, but man, you were in a pretty good spot watching the closed circuit fight. That was pretty cool back then. And there were a few undercards, and that fight lasted less than 2 rounds. And we were out of there. And Foreman just lifted him right off the ground with an uppercut. You could actually see Joe Frazier's feet leave the canvas. And I like Joe Frazier a lot. I think Joe Frazier was a really good dude. And so when Ali fought Foreman, it was a contrast in styles, right? Ali knew that he could not afford to get hit by George Foreman. That was just not going to happen. Not going to happen. So he had to figure out a style to kind of wear Foreman out. And he took a lot of blows to his body, right? Took a lot of blows to his arm. Foreman also was recovering from a broken hand. If you ever want to watch a really good movie, watch When We Were Kings. It's a documentary about the Foreman-Frazier fight. It's really, really good. It's more than just the fight, trust me. There's a lot of weird shit going on. Like there was like a weird voodoo spell. Foreman broke his hand. I mean, it's a strange kind of event in Kinshasa, Zaire. They fought in the stadium, and below the stadium is where they like tortured and murdered political prisoners. The whole thing is really, really quite something. I think Taylor Hackford was the director of that, if I'm not mistaken. And Ali beat Foreman. I was so pissed. I said that motherfucker beat George Foreman. God damn it. I was upset. I remember hearing it. And I remember the exact time I heard that he had beaten him. We were just leaving our car and walking into this mall in San Jose called Eastridge. And I'd heard that Ali had beat Foreman, and I was so fucking pissed and just fuck, he couldn't like knock that motherfucker out. But Ali eventually, got his in the end. And who wound up being, the overall kind of people's champion? It turned out to be George Foreman. George Foreman, in the game of life, became the heavyweight champion in the game of life. And Muhammad Ali was reduced to kind of a shell of himself who could not communicate with anybody. So, life has a very interesting way of evening things out. And Foreman actually came back and became heavyweight champ again at like an advanced stage. I mean, who does that shit? You know? And they had the Foreman grill, and he's like funny as hell and named all his kids George. I mean, at the end of the day, Ali may have beaten him in the ring, but Foreman beat him in life. But it was a contrast in styles. And that's what I like. That's what's interesting about boxing. You get two people that fight in very different kinds of ways. You have Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder has one punch. He's got one punch. It's called a knockout punch. And he's got a big knockout punch. But if Deontay Wilder got in close, right, and could eliminate that knockout punch, he would essentially sort of disassemble his style. He would neutralize the one weapon that Deontay Wilder would have to beat him. But what was interesting about Tyson Fury is instead of doing that, and everybody thought he was going to do that, right? He did the opposite. He said, I'm going to box with you. And you can get in here and you can try and throw your big right hand and try and knock me out, but I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you, and you're going to feel the fury of my fists. And so everybody thought that he was going to go in the other direction and try to shorten the space between Wilder and himself, right? But that wasn't the case at all. And that's part of life too, is when people think you're going to do a certain thing and you do something else, they don't know what to do. And he had won that fight even before he went into that ring. If you watch the lead up to Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and you see the stuff that Deontay Wilder does, especially at the weigh-in, he is so inside of Deontay Wilder's head. I knew then. That was it. Boom. I'm betting money. I'm betting money on Fury. And I won money on that fight. He was inside of his head. He totally lassoed that whole thing. And again, at the end of the fight, he gave Deontay Wilder so much credit. So much credit. He said he's a champion, heart of a champion. He says, I hope we fight again. I mean, there was no gloating. There was, you want to look for an inclusive. I mean, it's a really interesting moment because here's this guy who walks into the ring with a fucking mask on. Number one, that was a big mistake, right? The precursor, we've talked about this. And it's black and it's white, and I can tell you right now, there weren't too many brothers who were hoping that Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder. I'm just telling you that right now, unless they were betting money on Tyson Fury. That was not happening. Usually, man, in those fights, it splits down color lines. It's the truth. Absolute truth. And I'll never forget, I was watching Tyson Fury pre-fight again, and Jason Whitlock was doing a show live from, I think it was where they had the Super Bowl. Where was that? Was it Miami or Tampa? I think it was Miami. It was pre-Super Bowl week, and the fight was in February. So they had him on the show, and Tyson Fury. And then, by the way, that show with Jason Whitlock, I would say 80%, 90% of the show, black. When I say black, I'm talking about Jason, his uncle Jimmy, his young protege from Ball State, Darnell, and he would have LeVar Arrington and Marcellus Wiley and TJ Hushmanzada. Every now and then, you might get some dude on there like Steve Berline, but it's mostly black, right? It was mostly black, and it's a great show. It's not around anymore. By the way, Jason Whitlock is doing stuff with Clay Travis, with Outkick the coverage. I don't think it's nearly as good. I'm glad Jason Whitlock has a voice. I like it better when he's in a room of dissenters. He's better in a room of dissenters. He's better with a script. He's not a very good, just kind of riffity kind of guy. He's not. But I still like him, and I'll watch him every now and then. But they had they had Tyson Fury there, and man, he even got the brothers to like him. He was so freaking outrageous. He got the brothers to like him. And he told this dirty limerick, and they had to bleep it out like every 3 or 4 seconds, and people were in stitches. And I'm like, okay, they want Deontay Wilder to win. But man, in that moment, Tyson Fury was one of them, right? They brought him in. They accepted him. He cracked their ass up. He was outrageous. He probably, like, I would say that Tyson Fury probably had the best heavyweight shtick since Muhammad Ali, bar none, total showman. So it's the contrast in styles. Let's take a little bit of a look at the Harris Mike Pence debate. Let me see if I can just find it real quick here. Let's see. Go. And I'm sorry, I don't have the. All right, so hold on. I don't have the tab ready to go, but you know what? It won't be that hard to find. Let's see if we can get the whole debate. Here it is. It's on NBC. Remember now, I'm not a news program. I'm not impersonating a news program. I'm just me. Why don't we go to C-SPAN? Let's do C-SPAN. Okay, let's do a little bit of commentary on this. C-SPAN, we pay for C-SPAN. It's it's a taxpayer-funded thing. It is. All right, so let's break this. I'm not going to go through the whole debate, but I will do some. I will do some commentary here. Let's see. Foreman versus Tyson, both in their prime, would have been an epic battle. I love Mike Tyson. Ali was at an amateur fight and sent his Muslim brother bodyguards over to get me to meet me. I was young. It was a little unsettling. Ali could barely talk when I went over to say hi. Oh, that's cool. That's a good story. That's a really good story. I tell you, if you ever want to watch an amazing fight, if you can find it on YouTube, watch Ron Lyle versus George Foreman. I saw that live when I was a kid, man. I'm like, could this get any more rock'em sock'em robot? By the way, the hardest puncher ever in the heavyweight class was a guy by the name of Ernie Shavers. I'll stop there. All right, here we go. Setting the stage. We have the mask holes representing. Let's go. Let's hear a little of this.
Our great state has spectacular outdoor vistas and recreation, a strong economy, a can-do entrepreneurial ethos, and is known for collegiality and collaborative spirit. This vitality.
It's also known for fucking ripping off Tartarian architecture and calling it your own. All right, let's move to the real shit. All right, here's this Susan Page. She's writing a book on Nancy Pelosi. Right, okay. Who's this? Who's this person? Let's listen to her for a second.
And debates, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, Susan Page.
Now, who's this person? Hold on. Oh, it's also Solomon Sirius. God. What a word. That's her husband, that right there. That dude. Oh, fucking
Please
ridiculous.
welcome the first print journalist to be the solo moderator of one of the general election debates.
Okay, I don't know who this woman is. She doesn't matter. All right, Susan Page. She's writing a book about Pelosi. We kind of know what side of the, where her bread is buttered.
To Vice President Pence's family, I think is there, and to Senator Kamala Harris's family on this side, and most especially to my bosses who are seated right up there, and I'm very glad that they.
Oh, especially my bosses. I just love the word boss. Boss, boss, can I get some water, boss? Yeah, boy. Boss, boss, can I use the bucket, boss? Yeah, boy. Boss, need a cigarette, boss. Make it fast, boy. Boss. What a fucking name. All right, here we go.
Hey, welcome. And congratulations, you have scored the most exclusive tickets in the United States. Hamilton has
Oh, that's bullshit. It is not the most exclusive tickets in the United States. Trust me on that. The most exclusive tickets in the United States are happening somewhere in deep underground bunkers. Those are the most exclusive tickets. All right, here we go. All right. So what do we got here? Oh yeah. Let's see what we got. So this guy, that's Harris's husband, works for a globalist law firm, one of the most powerful law firms in all of the world. By the way, those are Aeron chairs, and I'm sitting in one right now. All right, let's go. Whoops. Oh, got to go back. Sorry, I moved forward.
Good evening.
Yeah, fuck you. All right, here we go. Come on, let's go. Move ahead. Where's my volume? Sometimes YouTube does this. You have to wait for the volume to catch up. All right, here we go. Let's go here.
this debate, an important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience,
Oh,
and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic.
thank God.
Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask,
Yes.
and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart.
12 feet.
The audience is
Interesting number.
enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the
So the whole thing is about control. Completely controlled environments, completely controlled and scripted from start to finish. Even the debates are lessons in script, measure, and control. Okay? And here we go.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here.
Okay, contrast and styles. Contrast and styles. Pence is how shall we say? He's almost Marcus Aurelius like in some ways. Like, does the guy even have a pulse? I've never seen this guy lose his cool or become, and I'm not a Pence fan, but you know, when you look up flatline in the dictionary, you'll see Mike Pence. Meanwhile, over here is the queen of histrionics, who always feels like she's about to go full tilt at any moment. So you have this guy who shows almost zero emotion, and this woman who can barely contain her emotion. Now, that is what we call a contrast in styles. And watch how it goes down.
We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus.
Oh my God, it's so terrible. All right, let's get into this shit here.
And here's the thing. On January
And here's the thing. Now watch her. Here we go.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
That's bullshit. The greatest failure of any presidential history in our country is deep and wide. We're littered with them. We can start with the Johnson administration. We could go into the Carter administration. We could go right into Bush 1, Bush 2. We could go into Clinton. Bush 2, of course, covers up the 9/11 attacks, sends us off to these wars, creates torture camps in Guantanamo, and it basically uses up all the goodwill of Americans as victims by posting torture porn from Abu Ghraib. So let's have some context here, Miss Harris.
And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months.
Okay, these are facts, but once you get into the facts, you have to parse those facts out. Who were they? Comorbidities? How did they die? Right? She doesn't give a shit. She just wants to throw out a number that sounds impressive.
Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease.
7 million people who get the fucking flu.
1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers.
Yeah, they are, because they're on the way out. They're on the way out because telemedicine and robotic medicine is going to replace them. And you don't address any of that. And neither do the people that you work with.
We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. Well, if your fucking governors of these various states didn't decide to ruin and crash their economy, they wouldn't have had to file. And if your boss had originally to control the whole damn thing right out of the gate and shut it in and basically said, look, this is a huge emergency. I'm taking control of the media. I'm taking control of the flights, everything. And basically, whether it's CNN or MSNBC or Fox, you're all going to be running the same shit because you're in a big crisis, huge crisis. And would it have been a power grab? Sure. But he would have been able to run the power grab instead of watching a lot of these businesses fall down and go by the wayside. Now, of course, the states, the Democratic states, even some Republican states are showing their true colors. But man, there is a price to pay. Now, look at Pence here. Okay. Now, he doesn't show emotion, but those are the eyes of a stone cold fucking killer. Look at him. Look at him. He is locked in on her early. And he's basically communicating, I am going to stick the hands of God right through your chest, and I'm going to extract your entrails at some point during this night. That's the look. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne.
And it's a lie.
That it will affect young people.
I mean, it's a lie that the way that they've promoted it. It's a real thing. Don't get me wrong. You can get sick from it. And guess what? You can get better too.
And that it would be contracted because it is airborne.
And then she's going to blame the whole airborne thing, right? Blah, 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 plucky, fucky, blah, blah. Okay. So what I want you to watch is when now Pence really comes on in the end. Let's just, because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Let's get to right about here. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, there's this dweeb. Fuck him.
I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change. And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West.
The record-setting wildfires are fucking arsons. Let's get off of this. Hold on.
you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out, the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion.
Now, here's where Harris indulges in dismissive facial expressions constantly. Like if you're on the fence and you watch this woman, just watch her. She can't even hold a poker face for more than 20 or 30 seconds.
Green New Deal that would impose
Just shake her head.
All new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
You roll the eyes, dismissive.
Joe Biden wants us
Thank
to
you, Vice
retrofit
President. Yes.
4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President.
business
Yes.
buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump.
Look, she's like, fuck, did you fucking shut up? Because I can't wait to say something.
Thank
He's
you,
going to
Vice
put
President.
America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But,
you, Vice
on
President.
the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
What she doesn't understand is that wars consist of battles. And there are opening salvos and opening shots, right? It is not the war. If there is a trade war with China, the war has just begun. And she doesn't understand that. These people just live in the false now. Okay, here we go.
Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration.
Okay, so again, I'm not here to bang the Trump drum, but this is a guy who has really done nothing but fight these people off ever since he took office. That's all he's done. That's all he's done. He had to defend himself against the stupid Russiagate. He had to defend himself against being impeached, right? There hasn't been one moment where this other side has said, okay, well, let's get down and try to create something together. Who could get anything accomplished in a climate like that?
They will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. I think about 20-year-olds. We have a 20-year-old.
Your 20-year-old will never go without a fucking job. Please. Your 20-year-old will be snatched up by your husband's globalist law firm in a heartbeat.
20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me?
Well, probably not. But it's not about manufacturing. It's not about production. It's about the rise of the robots, synthetic sentience, self-recognizing systems, super automation, not just any automation, super automation and AI. Nobody talks about it. He doesn't talk about it. She doesn't talk about it. Her goofy ass, Buddy doesn't talk about it, and Trump barely talks about it. That is the elephant in the room. Nobody's addressing that. No, it's all 20th century versions of what jobs are, should, and could be.
We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters
Well, guess what? The CDC has said that they can't be evicted.
are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month.
Yeah,
This-
well, your Democratic fucking states and most of the Republican, a lot of Republican states have made it difficult for them by not playing, by not trying their best to, stare down this, this illusion and say, look, we're gonna open this thing back up. We want people to be successful. We want people to be healthy. California, they took away the gig worker thing. You can't, like, if you're in California now, you got to work for a company. It's almost impossible to be a free agent. Almost impossible. So in her former state, California, even if you wanted to be a free agent, Gavin Newsom in the state of California won't let you. Let's keep going.
This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just
She always looks like she has to take a dump, doesn't she?
15 seconds to respond, because then I want to move on. to our
Well,
next.
I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades.
Oh my God.
And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes,
you, Vice
rolled back
President
regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration
Now, she just cut Pence way short on that response.
saw 500,000
Thank you, Vice
manufacturing
President
jobs
Pence.
created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through.
And again, Harris, dismissive. She's way too emotional.
Thank you, Vice
This
President
pandemic,
Pence.
but a
Mr.
Green New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice
massive
President
new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I'd like
Susan,
to-
I just need to respond very briefly,
15
please.
seconds, and
Thank
then we'll
you.
move
Thank
on.
you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video,
Who the fuck cares about climate change in North Korea? Really? A potential partner? What does North Korea do? That is the most asinine statement. And this woman's supposed to be a journalist? Climate change in North Korea? Do you know how many cars they have in North Korea? Like, there's probably more cars in Fredericksburg than in North Korea. What about all the coal and manufacturing? Oh my God. Climate change in North Korea. Oh, that's right there at the top of the fucking list of world problems. Now, maybe climate change in India, that might be a bit of a different story if you want to play. But let's just hear that, play that back again.
Like it killed jobs.
I'd like
Susan,
to-
I just need to respond very briefly,
15
please.
seconds. And
By the
then
way,
we'll
she
move
took
on.
about 11 seconds. Not bad.
Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea.
Do you hear that? Oh, yeah. Climate change in North Korea. That's a major world issue. Look, I think there are other countries that we have a much more complicated relationship with China. I'll just leave it there.
And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan. Well, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can.
Good for
You
him.
know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. The American people deserve to know that. Is probably why.
She always writes something down. It's probably like, I'm going to get this motherfucker. I'm going to get this motherfucker. Like, what is she really writing down of significance here?
Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So now, with regard to China, look.
See the dismissive look.
Professor Eldey.
Whoops, sorry.
All of us at the University of Utah
My
are
bad. I went way back too far.
I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking.
There we go.
Committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a.
She can't like just, keep it together. She has no poker face whatsoever. This woman is ruled and dominated by her emotions, which is strange because she's a Gemini with a Libra rising and Saturn and Aquarius on the midheaven. God forbid, God help us if this woman ever became president. We'd be in serious trouble. And that's not to say that a woman couldn't be president. I'm not saying that at all. This woman should not be president. She should not be president because her emotionality is like seismic.
Stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center. And even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually
Here she goes, batting the eyelashes, more dismissive.
as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
He's probably right about that.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence, I'm
use
sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods of a
Pence.
Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact.
He won't ban fracking, but I'll tell you what he'll do. Wherever you are with fracking, right? I'll tell you what he'll do. He will make fracking so fucking unaffordable to do that people will get out of the business. They will always do that. Well, we didn't ban it, but we put so many taxes and so many restrictions on fracking that, it's just not going to be financially sensible. This is what they always do. We won't ban it, but we'll make it so untenable that people get out of the business. And again, I'm not here to support or denigrate fracking. I'm just telling you really what the subtext is.
I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year.
So changing the topic.
Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home.
I love people. They ride by my house on a bicycle. This guy's right by my house on a bicycle. He's got a cigarette in his mouth. I love it. There you go.
State of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms.
Oh, please. They always get battered by fucking storms. Always. Always.
Seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served.
If Joe believed, what kind of science does Joe believe in?
When I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website?
Look how emotional she is.
Have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan.
No, they don't believe in your science.
Is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, you know, the science is telling us this. You know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us.
Oh, the existential threat.
Us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, carbon neutral by 2035.
Means they get rid of all the cars.
Joe has a plan.
It's not Joe's plan, by the way.
This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
Why do they have to say existential threat? Why can't they just say climate change poses a threat? Why does it have to be existential? You know, when I think of existential, I think of like Kierkegaard or, you know, Camus and, you know, it's just kind of like anxiety that you can't, you know, really pinpoint it. You know, it's free floating. You know, it's like this egregore. It's almost like it's an entity, this existential threat. You know, first the existential threat was Al Qaeda, and then the existential threat is the climate change, and now coronavirus is an existential threat. Whenever I'm just being a fucking threat. All right, here we go. Let's see what he says.
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one, he was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of four across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out, the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to retrofit 4 million American business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump is going to put America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But,
you, Vice
on
President
the
Pence.
issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to it as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment.
Okay, let's fast forward here. Let's get into more of the facial tics.
I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said this.
She's just quoting, the ship of fools here.
Because, of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero.
John McCain was no fucking great American hero. Sorry.
Expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that
We're talking about Coney Barrett now.
the concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed.
No,
to the
no,
Vice
look at
President.
Pence can barely hold back his glee where this is going. Watch his face.
The Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel.
Look at this. He's like, okay. Again, I'm not a big Pence guy. I think he's weird. And I think he's got very strange business connections that I don't really agree with. But look, he's looking in here and he's going to go in for the kill on the former Attorney General stuff. Here we go.
Question to the one I posed.
Look at that. He can barely hold back his. Watch his face here.
Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a
Hold on.
The vice president, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and
Blah, 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 fucking blah.
And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now. And it
So they're basically saying, look, we don't want the Supreme Court to be filled, that position to be filled by the Trump administration. So this is a very interesting thing. They say the people are voting now, the people are voting now, the people are voting now. And I'll tell you why they're saying this. Because if somehow, some way, they steal the election, I believe they'll, and let's say that Coney Barrett gets named, I believe they'll try to nullify the results of her being named Supreme Court. And will they pack the court? Maybe. But I will go further and say that they will remove her from the Supreme Court in some way. They'll either impeach her or they'll do something, because they're going to come back and say the people voted and they voted for us, not him and not Amy Coney Barrett. And they will try everything in their power. And again, I'm not a big fan of hers, to invalidate that selection. They keep saying, vote, the people are voting, go out and vote, the people are voting. Essentially what they're doing is they're saying that the people are voting not just for me and Joe, but they're voting for or against Amy Coney Barrett. Keep that in mind and watch, just follow how this thing unfolds.
Their decision.
See, their decision. It's their decision.
About who will serve on this most important body.
They've got something up their sleeve, right? They keep referring to this. And it's not just encouraging people to vote. they've got a plan that if they can wrangle this thing, win the election, steal it, whatever, that if Coney Barrett is voted in, they will remove her based on the fact that they won the election and that the people, they're trying to establish something here. They keep saying this again and again. Biden did the same thing with Trump.
Body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
And the
Senator
American
Harris.
people, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about
And so here she goes, rolls the eyes. Let's talk about packing.
You
packing.
once
Come on,
again gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight
And she's supposed to be like some fucking debate champ. Jesus, she's terrible.
answer is they are going
Look at this. Look at this. Oh, I'm going to be condescending, and I'm going to, have this stance where, I'm going to entertain your little moment. I'm going to entertain your little moment, and then I'm going to drop the hammer on you. Here we go.
to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election.
Th-
Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice President,
I got to
I
tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, reelect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah,
Thank
let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you
Oh, please. Please. I've seen some of these other judges. That judge in Dallas that was ruling on, the tranny kid and the mom and the dad. My God. Please. And by the way, every president does their best to pack the fucking courts all across the country. Obama did it. He had all these activist judges put into place. They all do it. Trump is doing it on his side. They all do it. Nobody's clean. Everybody's trying to get their people into place.
know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is Black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
Oh, she's pissed.
Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So I think the American
Thank
people, maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question,
you,
but I think
thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed.
I still don't know how the boyfriend didn't get one bullet.
People in America. who have
Thank you,
been
Senator
killed.
Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life.
Now, again, I'm not a huge Pence guy, but he's got gravitas down. Right? He's got the gravitas thing down. Watch him.
And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think
I'm going to get this fucker. I'm going
with
to get this
regard to
fucker.
George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. It was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back.
Now, he could have really nailed her because he could have brought up Jacob Blake. And he could have brought up the fact that Jacob Blake, beat the hell out of and threatened his girlfriend, right? And then she had to call the cops. And the cops came and whatever happened. And Kamala Harris never once had anything to say about the sanctity and the safety of the girlfriend. She's never responded to the guy who ran up and shot the two sheriffs in the head in LA. Right? And he could have used that moment to really go in and hit her with a shot across that prominent jaw.
Together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that America is systemically racist. And that as Joe Biden
you
said,
see
he
that
believes
dismissive.
law enforcement has
She's like smacking her lips. Oh, she just can't
bias
wait.
against minorities is a great insult.
Okay, all right,
to
here we
men
go.
and women who serve.
There's the fly. Okay, where the fuck does that fly come from? I'm going to tell you right now, that fly is CGI'd. Watch.
This
Watch.
presumption
Oh, hold on.
that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that America is systemically racist. And that as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult.
Okay, I don't think the fly just all of a sudden flies in there. Usually a fly flies around. I think the fly is CGI'd in, and people have done frame by frame breakdowns of this thing. Watch.
Bias against minorities is a great insult.
Do you see that? Right there. And he's talking about a bias against minorities is a great insult. And in this moment, all of a sudden the fly hits his head. I think that's a CGI moment. And let's see. It comes in at 127.38. All right, let's keep going. And, and Pence obviously doesn't feel the fly. And even if he did, I mean, he's totally unflappable. But he doesn't feel the fly. And that fly's there for a long time.
To the men and women who serve in law enforcement, and I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day, that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator...
All right, so I'm not really interested in what he's saying. I want to see when the fly leaves. Okay, so back here, let's keep going. All right, so it was 127.48. I believe when the fly comes in.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
And the fly doesn't move, by the way. And flies rarely do that, especially when you're moving your head around. They will move.
I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans.
What?
And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week, the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn
Fly still not moving.
white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
And Pence is shaking his head around. That fly's not moving.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a pattern of Donald Trump's. He called Mexicans rapists.
All right, it's gone now. Do you see what happened here? All right, so it's 128.24.
that
Thank
has
you. Your time
improved
is
the
up.
lives of African Americans,
Thank you, Vice
record
President Pence.
unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and will
up.
fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week, the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by.
Okay, so the flag goes eventually. Look, I got to get out of here. I've got to go. I got to work with a client. So, anyway, that's pretty much. Whoops, where'd I go? Whoops. Where are we? Whoops. I got to jam. I got to go work with the client. Anyway, I just tried to show you some of the stuff that went on with that debate. I think the fly CGI'd. I think Harris is way too emotional, way too histrionic. In a contrast to styles, I think Pence did just fine, even though I'm not a big Pence guy. But there you go. That's my breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you thought it was at least interesting and informative. Harris, let's see it fly, because if she did, you'd hear the smirk in her face. I think the fly is CGI'd. Totally CGI'd. There we go. It's either CGI or I think it's CGI'd. Some people have broken it down. Okay. So I'm out of here. I'll be back tomorrow. Friday Firecast. Glenn Streeter will be on with me, I think, for the first half hour, talking about survival, post-apocalyptic dystopian medicine and self-care, and then the Cremies will be on for the next hour. Thanks for joining me. Black Lives Matter. Great line, Shirley. Great line. I love it. Use your head in order to discern what's real, to your heart to discern what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Let me do my little thing here. For now. And send you all love. And it's all good. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.